Hi there everyone, welcome back to Dandelion Delphi Tutorials. We are going to look at the final of 2018 question 4, and it has one-dimensional arrays and text files in them. No two-dimensional arrays, so grade 11s, this is also your time to really see what you're made of and try this kind of difficult question. So before you watch further, go and try this yourself. So first we have to have a look at what is given. And this you will see if you open your program and you push F12, but there's also a description in the paper of what is given and the meaning often of the values that are given to arrays or maybe variables. So here they explain to you that there is an array days, and it's a constant, meaning it can't change. There are numbers from 1 to 7, well, the indexes, with the values from Sunday to Saturday. Now, this year, if you didn't have that, there is an array declared for you called short day names. And that often works well if you use the function day of week together with short day names to get the names of the days of the week. Just always remember that Sunday for Delphi is day number 1. Another array temp customers was given for 31 days, indicating the number of customers per day. And take note here that this constant array can only be used in question 4.2. And then the last was a variable array customers that had also 30 elements, but there wasn't any values allocated to it. Next, we were also given a text file, and when we're given a text file, the layout or the format of each line will be described. So here they're saying that there is a date and then hash and then the number of customers, and also that there are 365 lines for the year of 2017. And then they'll give you an extract of the data that's in the text file. These little brackets here won't appear, that just indicates what they refer to as a field. So the date is a field and the number of customers is a field, and it's separated by a hash. Then below the quick explanation of what each line means, there is a note here. First of all, can't change the code that is provided, that we know. And then for this question, it often says apply good programming techniques. So that means that there could be marks allocated for good programming techniques, such as good variable names, indenting, lines open, and so on. And then also they say that we need a modular design. And a modular design means that you're using your own functions and your own procedures, and there could be marks for that. So this is now button 4.1. Press pause and try it yourself. This question says that the person will select a month from the combo box, and then you need to go and find that month that the user selected and populate your array customers according to the month selected. Take note of the wording after the example of output as well. There's often a little line that says you have to display a message, and often learners that get 149 out of 150 lose this mark because they're so happy they achieved the top bit that they stop reading. So for my solution, I created a procedure called populate array. And here I have an if statement testing if the file exists. Even though the paper did not ask me to do this, I am required to always test if the file exists. Now remember this little line of code here that we've seen so often that saves you a lot of time instead of doing a case statement. There are 12 months, so replacing 12 lines or 13 lines of code with just one will definitely save you some time. And I am going to put these values in an array, so I'm going to use inc iCount, and therefore I need to initialize iCount above the loop. We have our normal assign file, tfile to the name of the text file, make sure you spell it correctly, and then reset tfile. Then my while not end of file, and I have added while iCount is also less than 31, and that is to prevent my loop from crashing should it go over 31. Then I read my text file, one line at a time, and I read it into S-line. Now, in your condition of your if statement there, you could put several other code that will still give you the right output. I often use pos because it just saves me some time. I'm just testing if the month that the person selected from the combo box appears in S-line. So if the pos of the month in this line from the text file is greater than 0, then I know I am in the month selected by the user. I then increment my counter, and the first part of the string is not important. That would be the month, and I've already sorted that out. So I'm just finding the position of the hash and deleting. And then what I'm left with in that string is just the number. So I'm going to string to int that number, and I'm going to put it in array customers in the position iCount. Take note that iCount only increments inside of my if statement, because I only want to increment it 31 times. If I would increment it here after my read line, it's going to increment 365 times, and my program is not going to work properly because I am now going over the allocated 31 days of that month. So make sure that you think about, where do I need to increment my counter? I'm going to increment it just before I add something to that array. And very important, remember your close file. I want you to take a look at an example of the data from the text file, because this is where lots of learners lost marks. First of all, you must take into consideration that the J of January, or the word Jan, is not going to appear at the same position for every line, because some days have 1 digit in the front and some then have 2. And then another problem was learners that copied out assuming there might be just 2 or there might be always 3 characters, but there isn't. So you have to use your pos to find your hash, get rid of the front part, then in S-line you're just left with the numbers, and string to int those numbers into your array, as you cannot assume the number of digits after the hash. If you have used a procedure here, remember to call it in the question 4.1, and then remember that very important message that you have to display. So that was 14 easy marks for you. Now is question 4.2. Here the user is selecting the day that this month starts on. So in the output here you can see they selected May, so only May's data will be in my array. But they selected Friday, in other words the 1st of May must be on a Friday, and then you must populate the rest. There were this year also marks allocated to have these brackets, so make sure your output matches exactly with the output as in the screenshots. Even if you didn't get the right output but you had the brackets, you could still score marks for those brackets. Press pause, try this, and then I'll show you the second set of output as well. And here is a second set of outputs for you to test. Now I'm going to show you the memo. Again, there is lots of code provided in this case. Take note of it. So all of this code was given. And then here at the bottom, they say type your code here. So it's important that you code below this. I've called my array populate here, but that wasn't really needed. It just saved me the time when I was testing my program to not have to click on 4.1 and then on 4.2. I could just immediately click on question 4.2. Your combo box contained the names of the day. Now I used my item index to indicate which day it was, because remember we have that array declared for the days of the month of the week, starting with 1 as Saturday. So if they clicked on the first item, which is Sunday, my item index would be 0. And if they clicked on Saturday, the item index would be 6. So what I did here is I changed this day variable to be the item index plus 1. So therefore Sunday will be 1 and Saturday will be 7, and that now matches up with my array. I'm jumping back to the screenshot so that you understand the next code, what I am achieving. I want to have open spaces with tabs, because you can see we're using neat columns. So I want to have open spaces here. If they selected Friday, that means the item index was 5, but my day is going to be 6. and I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 open spaces. So that's what I'm doing with this first 3 lines of code here. Is I'm initializing soutput because I'm going to build a string, so I always have to initialize it if the variable is on both sides of the assignment statement. And I'm adding the correct number of #9s. Remember, when you are selecting Friday, the item index is 5. Adding 1 means I'm starting at day 6. But I need 5 open spaces, so that's why I'm using iday -1. You could have used the item index here as well, but I'm going to use iday later. That's why I stored it as 6, whereas here I need 5 open spaces. I want to start with the output of the day and the number of customers on day 6. So 5 open spaces is needed, and that's what I'm doing with this top part here. You had to build a string in this program. In my solution, I am displaying this line. As soon as I have one line of the rich edit ready, I would then display it. But you could also have added #10s and just display at the end. So the next part here is looping through my array, starting at 1 as the 1st of February or whichever month is stored in array customers 1. And I am building a string now. So I have my open spaces at the top, and now at position 6, I'm adding that K. So that is, let's say, the 1st of February with a bracket and the number of customers then inside of the bracket with my #9 to create that tab space. Now what I'm doing in this if statement here before I am outputting is I'm testing if I've reached the end of the week. So if my iday is 7, that is the end of a week and I need to display, or if you're building a very long string, you would have to add your #10. And then I'm setting iday back to 0 so we can start again. And then I am displaying my output, and I'm also initializing my string here so that the next line is not adding on to the previous line, but I'm starting a new line here. And then I'm just incrementing my day here at the bottom. And so I loop all the way through my entire array, well, almost to the end. And every time the day is 7, I will then set the day back to 0, initialize my string, and then start at day 1 again. So the second part of the code started here, that for loop for k is assigned to 1 to I count, and it was displaying that line, all of these lines, actually up to there. Our last bit is a little different because we can't loop any further, but we still have to display the last day here, and for February we have a few days that we still have to display. So this last line had to be dealt with in a different way. Remember, I'm using iday if iday is equal to 7. So that is here. Every time it's Saturday, my iday will be 7. But now this is not going to display because iday is going to be 1, 2, 3. And I'm only displaying at day 7. So for that reason, I'm going to show you the last bit of code that we needed to just display the last few days that did not fill a complete week. And for my solution here, I am just displaying soutput. Remember, the day didn't reach 7, but my output was still built for the number of customers and those last couple of days. So all I need to do outside of my loop is just display what is left in soutput. Thank you everyone for watching Dandelion Delphi tutorials. In my book 2, you will find the explanations and rules for text files and arrays. Hope to see you soon!